this is why a complete consciousness change is necessary in people, to start seeing the world and themselves in a different way. Because the only way that a few can control the many is if the many control each other. As they said in the 60s, if they had a war and no one turned up, what would happen? There could be no war. You know, Bush and people like him and those that control him, they declare wars. They don't fight them. They get the population to fight them. This is the whole thing. Now, if the population refused to, there couldn't be a war. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as Einstein said, you cannot solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. Well, you can't become free with the level of consciousness that enslaved you. So there has to be a shift in consciousness, and if there's not, then nothing can change.
Well, I think we can change everything. I think one of the great ways that people are controlled is being persuaded that they have no power. They have no power to influence their own life, often, but certainly the world in general. For me, we are creating our reality from our perceptions, second by second, minute by minute. Our perceptions represent a frequency. It can be a low frequency, it can be a high frequency, it can be a narrow frequency, it can be an expanded frequency. I suggest, and I write about this in the books at length, we live in the equivalent of a quantum computer universe. All around us is a sea of information, a sea of possibility and probability. We are taking from that library, that mass of possibility and probability, outcome, that manifestation, that experience that relates to our perceptions and the frequency of our perceptions.
If you look at the world, it is a collective projection of the collective state of human consciousness. That's what it is. It's not something external to us. It's a projection of us. And this other world knows that. It knows that if it can program your perceptions, particularly collective perception, it will not only dictate your behavior, it will create a projection of those perceptions that we call human society.
So if you, for instance, have a self-perception that you are powerless, that you have no power, that you have no potential, that you are at the mercy of events, then your sense of the possible is very, very narrow. And so you will interact with the fields of possibility and probability within that narrow band. And you will then bring that into manifestation in your life as what we call experience. And that experience will mirror your perception. So you will live a life which is limited, in which you seem to be a victim of circumstance, a victim of other people.
So if you have perceptions of division, of conflict, of wanting to impose your will on others, and others have a perception that they have to acquiesce to that imposition, then you get the world we live in now. You have a world that's on the face of it, not just, not fair, because humans have perceived that they have to accept that it's not just and fair. So they acquiesce to that. So that's the world we have.
And that will then confirm to you the original perception that you have no power and that you're at the mercy of events. So it becomes a feedback loop. Your perception creates your reality, and then your reality confirms to you that your perception was right in the first place, because your reality is mirroring your perception. We can at any time break that feedback loop, break that circuit by changing our perceptions. If you look at the way people are controlled en masse, it's by controlling their perceptions. This is why you have a media that's owned by this network of manipulation, and the sources of information that people receive are owned and controlled by this network of manipulation. It's because if you control information that people receive, you control their perceptions, because people come to their perceptions from the information they receive.
So let's talk about what I see as a great opportunity. If this whole game falls and goes boom, people do, there will be some painful fallout in terms of the materialistic aspect of our lives. Many people will lose homes, they already are. Many people will lose not just their home, but perhaps their car as well. It might be that it's forcing us back into extended family relationships again and so forth. Can you tell me what you see as the beauty and the fallout from the collapse of this current economic structure, if we're willing to take on a shift in consciousness?
There are many addictions. There's emotional addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and there's things addiction. The addiction to things, to having the latest this, the latest that, a bigger this, a bigger that, and chasing this material dream as if it's a bigger fridge is going to make you happier than the one you've had, which is perfectly adequate. And it's this addiction to the accumulation of things, the addiction therefore to the debt that overwhelmingly pays for them, that has enslaved people within the system. Because if you want this, then you must do this to get that. The human race, for endless different reasons, not least constant encouragement through their lives, is suffering from a serious and deeply, deeply ingrained insecurity complex. What you must do, you must play the game by our rules. You must, for instance, see success as the accumulation of more and more things. And I started to understand amazing things. And that is, this world we think is solid, not solid at all. The only place this world exists in the apparent physical form we think we see is in our heads. The five senses just take vibrational information, turn it into electrical signals, feed it to the brain, and from that information, the brain constructs our reality. It's a computer system, basically, on the physical level. You know, when we want to go onto the internet, we can't just go on the internet. We go on the internet through an interface called a computer that takes us on the internet. That's what the body is. It's a computer system that takes consciousness and allows it to experience this reality, just as we experience the internet through our computers. And what I've understood, we'll go into it at length now, but I certainly will over the weekend in the 2 talks, what I've realized is that those in the shadows who understand how the system works, they've hijacked the computer. They're dictating its sense of reality. They're programming the computer.